Cozy games. Cozy games are getting more popular by the day, it seems, with there now being subgenres of cozy games. One of my favorite types of cozy games are farming sims, with Stardew Valley being one of the best games ever made in my opinion. They used to feel quite a bit more niche, but in the same way that Harvest Moon inspired Stardew Valley seems to have inspired a genre-wide expansion of games, and some of them are truly incredible. The issue here is that there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of Stardew Valley inspired games, and with so many options it can be almost impossible to know which ones you'd like and which ones would be a waste of your time and potentially money. So I decided to absolutely annihilate my personal backlog, sink myself further into debt, and put the time in to find the good ones. I forced myself to spend exactly 2 hours in 20 different cozy farming games to find the best ones. 20 cozy farming games, 40 hours. A bunch of this sound effect. This is my story. A few things I want to quickly address before we get into the games. First, I want to make it clear that I understand that these games are much bigger than their first 2 hours, so I want you to understand that in no way am I here to make any objective criticisms of these games as a whole. Stardew Valley opens up into what can feel like an entirely new game several times throughout a playthrough, and I expect most of these games do as well. So what I'm really here to do is simply give my thoughts on how good I think the game's initial hook is, and hopefully give you a big enough glimpse into these games to narrow down your options, so that you can hopefully find something you'd actually like to play long term with a little less trial and error and waiting on Steam refunds to clear on your part. It was also impossible for me to rank these games like I usually do because I love so many of them so much, so for this video I will instead be reviewing them in the order in which I played them. So let me know in the comments how you feel about this format versus the ranking format. There's only one game in the whole video I don't really recommend, and I tried to get as many different vibes and styles in here as I could while staying true to the genre, so we should certainly be able to find something for you to play. I played quite a few of these live over at twitch.tv/jgigs and will continue to do that for videos in the future. So if you're interested in coming over and hanging out and seeing more of the behind the scenes of sorts for the games I play for these videos, we'd love to have you. One last thing, you're going to notice that for many of these games my playtime is well over 2 hours, and again that's because I'm a big fan of the genre and over the years I've played several of them. But for this video, I started from the beginning and played for 2 hours and limited my initial review to those 2 hours. All that being said, let's do this. We'll kick it off with Traveler's Rest, and I really like this game a lot. This is definitely a game I could see myself sinking a ton of time into. I adore the way the game looks. I always appreciate it when you can tell someone spent a lot of time making their game look a certain way, and the details here are just top notch. It's beautifully done pixel art, and there are just so many little details that didn't need to be added, but the fact that they were goes such a long way. For example, when your character runs, the way the sleeves on your shirt blow in the wind. That doesn't need to be here, but the fact that it is speaks volumes about the attention and passion that went into making the game, you know? The lighting and environments and overall feel of the world is just brilliant. I have no criticisms to give. I think the story starts off very well. It's a great foundation to build on, and it's actually interesting. I like your guide of sorts through the game. The tutorial is very thorough and well-paced. It never feels tedious or like you're just having to go through the motions to be able to actually play. It feels very much just like playing the game. I explored a small bit of the world, but I get the impression it's actually a pretty big one. You can see hints of areas to be unlocked later, bridges to be repaired to expand the map, and so on. There's a pretty big skill tree, so you can develop your character in the ways that complement the way you want to play. The NPCs all seem very well designed and full of personality. There's a lot of customization here in more ways than just visuals. You can, of course, develop your tavern however you see fit, but beyond that, all the different recipes and versions of recipes and beverages and desserts, there seems to be an immense amount of depth here. The music is excellent, fits the aesthetic and vibes perfectly, and the sound design is very well done. Everything plays very smoothly. I like their take on a lot of the gathering and farming mechanics. I will say, if you're looking for something that is just cozy and chill vibes throughout, this one has that outside of whatever you decide your business hours will be. When the tavern is open, you are going to be busy and customers are going to start complaining and it's going to get dirty and you're going to run out of stuff, etc. So if you're prone to feeling the pressure of moments like that, it's something to be aware of. It does appear you can hire employees at a certain point, which could certainly alleviate a lot of that pressure, but just know that the initial climb might be a little stressful at times. Traveler's Rest feels very much like a game made by someone who loves this genre and wanted to add to the genre in a meaningful, high-quality way, and from what I saw, it seems like they very much accomplished it. I will definitely continue to play. Quick additional note here, a couple of days after I finished my 2 hours for this video, there was a significant update that added the first chapter of the storyline, 2 new maps, and a bunch of new NPCs, with some notes on what's coming next. So you have devs here that are still actively working very hard on this game well after its release, with a lot more being added to it in the future, and that's always nice to see when you're deciding to sink some time into a game. Up next, we have Moonstone Island. There's a lot to talk about with this one. They took inspiration from a lot of different directions and made a very interesting game here. Think Stardew Valley meets Pokemon meets Slay the Spire with a little Moonlighter splashed in. On the surface, we have what might be considered a fairly standard cozy farming sim experience, a very cute, well-done pixel art style, a nice, chill vibe farming sim with a lot of different crops crops and flowers and things to grow, decorations, tons of ways to build and customize your farm and make it unique. There's the familiar social element where you befriend NPCs in town with romance options. If you've played Stardew and you're familiar with the community center aspect, this game has that in more ways than one. There's exploration, dungeons, and what appears to be a very big map. Where it starts to branch out is in the spirit system. The tutorial of the game is fairly short and concise, with one of the main things you do in it basically being choosing your starter Pokemon. Your dad gives you the option to choose between 3 spirits, each with different types and abilities, and as you explore the world, you'll see more spirits to battle and tame. There's familiar typing with strengths and weaknesses. The battle system is card-based with armor and HP elements you'll be familiar with if you played Slay the Spire. As you explore the world, you'll find shrines with puzzles to solve and battles to clear. This game has so much going on, and just hearing it all might make it sound like they tried to do too much, or that there would just be too much to manage for one game, but it honestly all comes together in a pretty cohesive way. It all makes sense for the world, and the way one system complements another makes it feel just very natural here. It's a lot of fun, and I think one thing this game really offers is the ability to sort of lock in on anything you like. If you want to just build the biggest and best, most amazing looking farm you can do that and progress through the rest of the game at your own pace. You want to lean into the social aspect, you can. If you like to explore and solve puzzles, or you really enjoy the combat, it seems you can do as little or as much of all of these things as you want. Within reason, of course. Obviously, at some point, you're probably going to need to progress through the game, which will involve doing a bit of everything. But there seems to be no hard timeline or sense of urgency. Feels very much like a go at your own pace experience. I really enjoyed this one. I think they took what may have sounded like an overly ambitious idea and really hit the sweet spot with it. This game is well worth a try if you've never played it. Next, we have I Am Future, and this one is nice. It can be a very chill, genuine, cozy game. If you're someone who likes having a long to-do list without the pressure of feeling like you're under a deadline to complete it, this is something you will probably enjoy a lot. One really cool thing about this one is there's a slider, along with several other options you can customize to make the game as cozy as you'd like it to be. There are some things that happen at night on normal difficulty that can make your life harder, but you can very easily just turn them off at any time and simply enjoy cleaning and developing your home. Your character wakes up on a rooftop after the apocalypse with no memory of who or where he is, and it seems a good bit of the storyline is going to be centered around uncovering that mystery. It's got a great look to it, I dig the style, and it plays smoothly and is pretty intuitive as far as the controls and what you're doing are concerned. I'd be really interested in seeing what someone's rooftop looks like that has a bunch of time in this game. You're able to build yourself minions and find more NPC residents in the form of talking appliances as you go. There's farming, fishing, building, decorating, exploration, tons of big projects to strive for and complete to unlock more areas and such. It's a really nicely put together game, and again, one that I think you could really just kick back, listen to a podcast, or watch more of my videos and just vibe. If I have one critique, I think the soundtrack could stand a few more tracks. There isn't a ton of variety in the music, and it's nice enough at first, but by the end of the 2 hours, I was about fed up with it. All in all, it's a great, chill, cozy little game. Moving right along, we have Graveyard Keeper, and this is definitely one of my favorites on the whole list. I love just about everything about this game. I think it's beautifully designed. I really dig the style here. Just look at the rocks and the ground and the way the leaves blow and the water moves. This is such a pretty game. You're in an accident and you wake up in a mysterious place to be told that you're now a graveyard keeper, and you're trying to figure out what you need to do to get back home. The way the story is presented, it would seem that there's actually an end to this game, but I don't know because I haven't beaten it. The way that this game gives you so many different things to do and ties them all together is really well done, and the systems expand as you play at a really nice pace and in a way that makes sense. There's a lot of quality of life to unlock as you play, from making tasks easier in general, to the way you get around the map, what you're capable of, and so on. You have a pretty robust technology tree that you decide how to unlock and progress as you go, gaining points for these trees by doing related tasks. So chopping down trees and gathering stones will earn points to progress trees that are in some way related to that, whereas performing autopsies and focusing on your graveyard will earn points in that direction. It's very cool, and I really like the space you're given to choose while also being guided a bit by the requirements of the story. The characters are all very well done, lots of personality and depth. The humor in the game is pretty good. You can also sort of operate on your own schedule. You don't necessarily have to sleep at night if you don't want to. It's a huge game that just continues to open up and expand the longer you play it, and it's one you could easily sink a few hundred hours into. And there's also a bunch of DLC if you decide you want more than the base game has to offer, which again is a lot. Again, this is one of my favorite games in the whole video. I absolutely adore it, and I highly recommend you give it a try if you haven't played it yet. Next is Gleaner Heights. I have a few hours in Gleaner Heights from a few years ago, and it took me about 25 minutes or so into this playthrough to remember why I didn't put more hours into it. I want to be careful with the way I critique this game because I don't think it's an awful game or anything, and I do get the impression it's a 1 or 2 person project. The two main issues here are that 1, unfortunately the bar has been set almost impossibly high for this type of game, and 2, the game seems to be virtually an attempted clone at Stardew Valley rather than a game inspired by it. The best way for me to quantify the majority of my criticism for this game is to say that it just feels like it's in the alpha phase. There were just some decisions here that I don't really understand. Anything that falls on the ground doesn't get auto-looted. You have to individually pick up every single thing, and it goes into your hands, to which you then have to hit another button to put it in your inventory. When putting items in the sell bin, you have to be holding them in your hand and do them one at a time, regardless regardless of the size of the stack. The process of buying stuff from vendors just feels incomplete. Like there was supposed to be a buy button added at some point and it just never was. It feels very much like there's nothing going on. It's seemingly impossible to find enough to do to justify the days lasting as long as they do. And that's not to say the days are too long, but it's just like there's literally nothing to do after you water your crops in the morning. So I found myself going to sleep at like 10 a.m. every day just to advance my crops a bit. You can run around and talk to people, I guess, but it doesn't seem to get you anywhere. There's just not a lot of substance to what's going on. There are mines, but I don't think I'm supposed to be in there that early. I don't know exactly what the game wants me to be doing or in which direction I should be trying to progress. I appreciate the effort that went into the aesthetic. As you run around the world, it doesn't look bad. I like the curved roads, the water looks really nice. I think the game looks fine. I really thought the way the interior of the diner in particular was set up was very well done. The game just needs to be filled up a bit more, and I think the overall controls and feel could use a touch-up. Guide us a little bit more. Tell us what we should be doing with our days after we water our crops. Give us a few tasks, even if just for a few days, to give us an idea of the types of routines we can be building for ourselves. I get not wanting to force us to do things or handhold too much, but I personally felt like it could have used a little bit more of it. This is unfortunately the only game in the video that I don't really recommend because there's just too much quality on the rest of this list. Next, we have My Time at Portia. I don't really know which one is correct because NPCs in the game say it both ways, but it's what some people at the time it came out saw as an answer to years of I want Stardew Valley but 3D. If that is something you want, stay tuned. We're talking about a game a little bit later that is that, but My Time at Portia stands out in enough ways that I think we can just talk about it as its own game altogether. That's not to say there aren't some clear similarities here. You move to a new town to take over your dad's workshop to restore it and do your best to help the town meet its needs. One of the first big jobs you get is even repairing a bridge. It plays really well, the controls all make sense, and everything is pretty intuitive. You can get really deep with customization as you get further into the game as your area expands. Lots of different furniture and items to place that give you different buffs, which I think is pretty cool. Townspeople are all fun and interesting and diverse, and this game is actually voice acted if you're into that. Most of the voice acting is pretty good too.
Ah, good to see you again. Hope you had a pleasant...
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm here to show you.
I wonder what it's like.
There are a lot of different events and things happening in the world at all times, so it feels pretty alive, independent of you and what you're doing, and I always dig it when devs are able to pull that off. The mining system is pretty cool. Basically, when you enter the mines, you're equipped with a scanner and a jetpack. So you use the scanner to find areas where there's something to be found, and then you use your pickaxe to find it. There are also just tin and copper deposits you have to keep an eye out for. They aren't labeled or anything, but they're there. There are also more secrets and things to find in the mines, especially as you start getting deeper. It has all the familiar things about Stardew Valley in one way or another, including romanceable NPCs if that's important to you. But again, it feels different enough that it's far from being a clone. It's a very cute, chill game that has a pretty insane amount of content and depth, with DLC and other entire games in the franchise, with more on the way apparently. This is a universe that's continuing to expand, so if you play this and fall in love with it, there's so much more for you to do. Most of you have probably at least heard of this one, so if this was the nudge you needed to finally check it out, I don't think you'll regret it. Next up, we have Sunhaven, and this is definitely among the most polished and full games on this list. As a very quick summary, think Stardew Valley but with a heavy fantasy vibe, Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. You get to choose from a variety of races at the beginning, like human, elf, angel, demon, etc. You also pick a profession that decides what items and perks you start with. As with many of the games we're covering here, it has many of the elements you'd expect from a game of this kind, but they really put a lot of effort into making this one unique in the space. As for the visuals, it's a stunning game. The world feels vibrant and alive, and I just love the overall design. I really love the inside of the smithy. That is such a cool interior. The intro and tutorial are also fantastic. It was obviously very clearly laid out and paced in an intentional way to get the player familiar with the general concepts and mechanics, as well as navigating the map and visiting the important places, the general store, the pet store, town hall, the blacksmith, while leaving the rest of it for you to discover in your own time. It also fills up your first couple of days with things to do, so you don't just find yourself standing around at 10 a.m. wondering what you're supposed to be doing. And at a certain point, you'll just hit a mission that says, enjoy the rest of your day off, indicating that you can now explore or tidy up your farm to your heart's content without worrying about not completing something or missing out on anything. And the amount of thought put into that is the type of thought you'll see put into every other aspect of this game. There's a lot of good quality of life, like being able to use the map to find NPCs in real time, and not having a stamina bar, meaning you can literally tidy up your farm all day if that's what you want to do. The combat shows potential to branch out quite a bit, with melee and ranged weapons as well as magic spells you can unlock and use. There's a pretty robust skill tree for you to develop your character in whichever direction seems fitting for you. The NPCs all have a lot of personality and variety, and if I do say so myself, are probably some of the more attractive NPCs in any of these games if you're into that, which I'm totally not. I was just saying that for you because you're probably into it, but not me. This is definitely one of those games that you could easily get hundreds of hours out of. It's one of the standouts in the genre for sure, in my opinion. Next up is Roots of Pacha, I think? Pacha? I don't really know, but it's a farming sim set in the Stone Age, and it's really cute. This game is just oozing with charm, and you'll very quickly pick up on the care and attention that went into it. It's got a really cool aesthetic, and the detail details are really nice. Even just the simple stuff like the sign from the village to the forest is just some trees painted on a rock pointing to the forest. The game is full of little things like that. Sometimes NPCs are playing instruments around the campfire, and when you get close to them, that instrument is added to the music track that's already playing. They all dance around, and it's all just really cute. It's also a really fun game. There's farming and fishing and crafting and animal taming for the purposes of having farm animals as well as pets. There are mines and exploration and puzzles and mini games, and just a lot going on here. There was an issue a while back that resulted in it being taken off Steam for a while, but it seems to be back up now, so I'm including it on the list. Hopefully everything is still good to go with this game. There's something about games based in the Stone Age that always really do something for me, and this game takes the idea and implements it so well and makes it work with this genre. It plays very nicely. The way they've streamlined accessing your tools and different items you'll be using on a regular basis is really well done. The social elements all seem to be here, and the characters are all fantastic. The world feels very much alive, and one cool thing is that it's not solely up to you to contribute to the progress of the village. Your village has a score of sorts that can only go up, and you can impact it by putting things in what is effectively the sell bin from Stardew Valley, but the rest of the village also has an impact on the score. So it really feels like you're all working together to reach new thresholds that allow you to research and unlock new technologies. It's a cool system, and I think it's neat how such a subtle tweak like that can make it feel like the burden isn't exclusively on you to make progress that benefits everyone. All in all, it's a really cute, very fun, seemingly very big game that had a lot of cool spins on the familiar elements for the genre, and I think anyone that tries it will probably enjoy it a lot. Moving along, we have another one of my personal favorites in Spirittea. I just really love this little game. I played it when it first came out in 2023, and I really liked it then, and it's undergone quite a few changes since then that only seem to have improved it. There's a lot to say about this one. As with many of these games, you move to a small town from a big city to take over an old abandoned something, in this case a bathhouse, but with a bit of a twist. The clients of the bathhouse aren't the residents of the town, but spirits that have lost their identity and are sort of stuck. So your job is to find these spirits around town and get them to come to the bathhouse, where the better you make their stay, the more money you make and the more a particular tree grows. I won't go into too much more detail than that, as it's fun to find out about all the details as you go. There are so many things I like about the decisions made for this game. One big thing is that when you're starting out, the wood you use for the furnace is finite, so you can realistically only run the bathhouse for a certain amount of time every day, leaving you plenty of time to do the wide variety of other things there are to do in the game. The bathhouse will also close down while upgrades are being done, which will also allow you time to explore other things. I think that's really nice because running the bathhouse is pretty addicting, at least for me, and I'd have a really hard time doing anything else if I didn't have to. I'm also someone who really loves the early phases of these games that involve the cleaning / restoring of whatever you've taken over, so like breaking all the rocks and cutting all the grass and stuff on your farm. I really enjoy that. This game has one of the more satisfying versions of this in the cleaning of the bathhouse. It takes quite a while to do it, but watching it slowly get cleaner as you continue to work on it really just hits the spot for me. I also really love the style with this game, and it's just fascinating to me to see where the devs for each of these games put the extra focus, and how. Many of them are ultimately going for a similar type of style and vibe, but when it's done well, there are elements to it that really make it stand out, and for this game, for me, it's the water. The way there are little waves that crest and the level rises and falls, or in the rice fields, the way that's just slightly moving. I think it's gorgeous. There is no farming in the traditional sense of planting stuff outside your home, but you will be growing some stuff inside the bathhouse later in the game. There's so much going on here, good exploration, social elements, mini games, tons of layers to the bathhouse, and that's just what I've seen in my time playing. I absolutely love this game. It's one of my favorites on the list, and playing it for this video reminded me just how much I love it. I'm glad it's back in my rotation, and I highly recommend that everyone check it out. Next is Dinkum, and if you've played Animal Crossing, you'll feel right at home with this one. This is very much Animal Crossing Australia, and it's really nice. As an American who's lived in Australia for the last 4 years or so, they did a really good job capturing some of the vibes, and I love all the different wildlife in the game. I've actually spent a little over a year now in real life befriending magpies, these little black and white birds, and every day they'll come to hang out in the garden and sing, so we'll go down and feed them and hang out. So I really love seeing the magpies in the game and hearing their calls and stuff. It's really cool. This is a game that's going to really open up and expand in a big way the longer you play it. There's so much to do. It's going to be a lot of building and decorating and exploring and finding all the different animals and insects and other variety of things spread throughout. It's a completionist dream. The only two real criticisms I have of the game are both audio related. One of them is the music that plays when you go inside Fletch's tent. There's a dissonance to it that I kept describing during the stream over at twitch.tv/jgigs for anyone that wants to come hang out while I play games for these videos, as making me feel like at any moment Dinkum was going to turn into a horror game. Like I was going to turn around and see Fletch doing that weird, creepy, big-eyed, bigger than normal smile as her face starts melting off her skull or something. It's just such a weird, unsettling choice for the music considering how good the rest of the music fits. The other thing is the sound that plays when the experience you gain for your skills is being distributed. It sounds like someone sucking their teeth or like someone wringing out a liver like a wet rag. It's such a gross, odd sound. Beyond those two things, it's all great. You will either love or hate the sounds of the NPCs talking, much like you've probably heard people talk about with Animal Crossing, but the good news is you can just turn it off if you hate it. The level of customization and decoration and everything available in this game is very high, and it's another example of a game where creativity really gets to shine through. It's another one that I'd love to see the towns of people who've been playing for hundreds or even thousands of hours. If you're a fan of Animal Crossing and want to give it a go with an Australian theme, you will almost certainly love this game. And for anyone who hasn't played Animal Crossing and is less familiar but looking for something a bit different than everything else in this video, I also think you'll love it. It's a great game. I also think it recently got a port to the Nintendo Switch for anyone that cares about that. Next up, we have Chef RPG, and this is perhaps my favorite game of the entire video. It's in a close race for sure. I think as far as initial vibes and just overall feel of the game, Chef RPG got the closest to doing for me what Stardew Valley does for me. You'll really get the idea of what I'm saying when you hear the music. The music in the game is exceptional, as is everything else to be honest. It's beautiful to look at. I love the NPCs and I'm looking forward to continuing to play to get to know them all better and see what kinds of storylines play out. I really like the world they've built here. It's got some cool futuristic, slightly bigger town vibes than a lot of these games tend to go for. Like borderline cyberpunk style vibes in some cases. I really dig it a lot. I love the town, it looks amazing, and it's very interesting to explore and learn, as is the rest of the world so far. The map is huge, there's plenty of it I didn't get to see, not even including the areas I can't access yet. The gameplay is incredibly smooth. There was obviously a lot of thought put into the flow of the gameplay, and they really nailed it. One of my favorite things about the game is that talking to someone doesn't lock your character in place. You can walk away at any point, so if you accidentally talk to the wrong person or speak to someone that's talking more than you feel like listening to, you can literally just walk away. Might not sound like a big thing, but it's huge for me. The actual gameplay loop of running your restaurant is very fun, and there's way more to it than I was anticipating. At the beginning of the game, you get to pick a specialty with, again, more options than I thought there would be, and you can decide what type of establishment you're going to run that will dictate how many slots you have to have available for each category of meal, being appetizers, main courses, desserts, and drinks. There are a lot of recipes, and the way your restaurant looks and operates and everything else is all totally up to you. It's a fantastic system. There are mini games for the different stages of meal prep and depending on what you're making, sort of like Cooking Mama vibes for those of you familiar with that. And how well you play the mini games dictates the quality of the dishes you're sending out to the customers, which as you would expect also has an impact on a variety of different things. As you grow, you'll hire staff and expand and unlock more things in basically every direction. It seems like a very easy game to sink a bunch of hours into. Chef RPG is officially in my rotation. I have and will continue to play this for a long time. Up next is perhaps the most unique game on the list, and Core Keeper. This is an excellent game and one that stands out from the others on this list in quite a few substantial ways. The really cool thing about this game is that it pretty much just drops you in with no real guidance or tutorial, which is so fitting for the way the story introduces the game. That being said, it's very easy to figure out how the game plays, and despite the lack of handholding, you have a pretty clear idea of what you should be doing. You'll spawn in this room with roots all over the place and these mysterious sort of statues that you can interact with but can't really do anything else about. You'll very quickly realize the roots are your source of wood, and that wood can be used to craft your initial set of tools, and from there, at least in the sense of your basic tools, progression is fairly standard. You'll find copper, start making things out of copper, and then start finding the next thing, and so on. The lack of guidance is also really nice because you aren't left feeling like you should be doing something more pertinent to a particular quest. So you can really just go hard at whatever you feel most compelled to go hard at. You like farming? Make as big of a farm as you can stand. Want to have animals? Go find them. You like fighting? There's plenty of that to do. You like exploring? The map seemingly never ends. You can really play this game however you want to play it, and the more you uncover as you play, the more you'll just naturally have a desire to start progressing in all the different areas. You might encounter some enemies that make you understand the importance of better weapons and armor and getting better, or uncover new technologies that make farming and animal husbandry more interesting, and so on. I actually played this game back in 2022 before it was officially released, and I loved it then, and it's gone through a pretty substantial amount of development since then. It is a brilliant little game. Several people in my community have put quite a bit of time into it. Every single person I've ever spoken to about this game that has played it absolutely loves it, and I'm no exception. I speak to myself a lot. Again, there's not another game in this video quite like this one, so if you're looking for something a little different than you've played before, Core Keeper is honestly a must play. Moving along, we have Lens Island. This is also a fairly unique little game, especially as it relates to the rest of the games in the video. It is also perhaps the least cozy. It has enough of the familiar elements to still belong in my opinion, but it offers a very different experience than anything else here. I did put a few hours into this game a while back, although I'd forgotten what I'd name my world until I loaded it back up. Okay, can I start over? Because I have a little bit of time in this game. It'll probably take you a little bit to get used to the way this game plays. The camera can be pretty finicky and hard to manage at times. The combat's pretty unforgiving, and the way a lot of things work in general can just be sort of unintuitive. The building is actually pretty solid in the game though. I bet you could really build some cool stuff if you spend enough time in the game. There is farming and cooking and fishing and all the things you'd expect from a game like this. The combat is quite a step up in difficulty in my opinion for this genre, and the dungeon crawling in general stands out. One of the really cool things about this game is you can build anywhere, and there are also some things that only grow underground, so you'd do well to have a base or even a network of bases underground. There are a lot of bridges through the dungeons that need to be repaired, but in addition, again, you can build anywhere, so if you brought the materials, you could basically get anywhere you want to get if you're willing to build your way there. Another thing I really like is the way they've decided to tackle inventory space. Basically, your backpack already has a spot for every item in the game, and the level of your backpack determines how big of a stack of each item you can hold at a time, so there's no need to constantly be sorting your inventory or dropping one thing to carry another or any of that. It's a pretty solid system. There are also pets, which I'm always a fan of. One thing we do need to talk about is the loading screens. I personally don't have too much of an issue when a game has a loading screen here and there, but I know it's a big deal to some people, and in Lynn's Island, every time you come in and out of the underground, there's gonna be a loading screen, and they're not exactly the fastest. You'll also experience a lot of pop-in as chunks load and stuff, so if any of that is aggravating to you, this might not be a game to play. Overall, I think this game is really interesting. There does seem to be some depth here, the map is pretty big, and I think it's one worth checking out just to see how you feel about it. I reckon you'll know well within the refund window for Steam if this is something you'll want to play. Next is Potion Permit, and I'd say this is one of the cozier games on the list. It has one of the easiest worlds to just be in, if that makes sense. It's very peaceful. It also has arguably the catchiest main theme. I walked around for days humming this one after playing it. Potion Permit does not have traditional farming, but it just fits in with the genre so well I decided to include it. It'll feel very recognizable to you if you're familiar with these games. But it did a great job of feeling like its own unique thing. It eases you in very nicely, giving you time to get familiar with each new element to the gameplay before stacking anything else on you, so it never really felt overwhelming or confusing. You're a chemist sent from the capital to this little town to try and take care of the residents when they fall ill, but the town as a whole is not really a big fan of the capital and therefore not a big fan of you. There's an incident that keeps getting vaguely referred to with the last chemist that was there. So part of what you're doing is trying to build up a reputation so the townspeople like and trust you more, with the primary method of this being making them better when they're sick. You do this by making potions for whatever ailments they've been afflicted with, and all the ingredients for the potions can be found in the region surrounding town. I really like the mini game for making potions. If you like puzzle games, you'll enjoy this a lot. There are a few layers to it, but it's basically making pieces fit in spots available to you with the resources you have available. Each resource being a different shape and amount of blocks, as well as having an element attached to it. For some recipes, you won't be able to use one or more of the elements, so as you progress, the potions will get a little trickier to make. After you've made a potion a certain amount of times, you unlock the recipe, which I'm assuming means you no longer have to keep playing the minigame to make it. I think it's a really cool, unique little system. The town is really nicely designed and laid out. It's a lovely little place to explore. The NPCs are also great, and it does have a social element present, so as you get to know them all, there may be some storylines and things to explore there. There's an arcade in town that actually has a few games you can play, and they're not bad. I always appreciate when the town arcade actually has playable games. Also, if you listen closely in the arcade, you'll hear some familiar sounds. I won't spoil it, but I think you'll get a kick out of it if you decide to go check it out. This one is a really nice play, and I've seen some people mention that it actually has an ending, so it's a game you can finish, although I'm not sure how long that would take. And I imagine in a game like this, that would vary heavily from person to person anyway. If you're looking for a relaxing, cozy little game that despite not having farming is still a very familiar experience to the genre, I see no reason you wouldn't enjoy this game. Next is another one you've probably heard of. It's Palia. Palia takes familiar aspects of quite a few different games and puts them together in an MMO, and it works really nicely. It's much of what you'd expect to see in a game like this, with a little Breath of the Wild thrown in. I know MMOs can be intimidating for some people, but I think Palia is so approachable and really good to sort of dip your toes in. It's a very easy game to just load in and play and ignore the other people playing the game. And your home is sort of in its own dimension, so unless you invite someone there, they can't be there. The building is really good, lots of customization and room to expand. You can play this game for a very long time without running out of things to do, as MMOs tend to have a way of continuing to get bigger as you play them. But again, not in a way that should necessarily feel intimidating to you. It's a very welcoming game. It does a great job of introducing you to all the mechanics and systems and makes it pretty clear early on that you're free to specialize in whatever you like, or do a little bit of everything if that's more your vibe. It's a great looking game. There's some solid quality of life. The world is big with a lot to see and do and explore. There are temples to find with puzzles to solve and clear. For my Stardew Valley players, there's a version of the community center here, so for anyone that likes to collect things, there's more than enough here to keep you busy for a long time. I know a few people have put quite a bit of time into this this game and are still really enjoying themselves. And you'll reap all the benefits of MMOs in the sense that the devs are active, there will be events going on and special events for holidays and things like that. If you're interested in a seamless multiplayer experience in the farming sim genre, you've got a fantastic one here. And if you aren't interested in multiplayer, it's still very easy to treat this like a single player game and still get a ton of mileage out of it. Moving along, we have Littlewood. This one is really cute. It's a neat concept too. The game begins immediately after your character successfully defeats what would have been the final boss in most other video games. So instead of that journey, your job in this game is to now rebuild and grow the town. Also, unlike most games, you have full creative control. So in build mode, you can pick up and move almost anything. These trees in your way? Move them. Don't like this raised terrain here? Lower it. Want a big pond or river running through town? Just dig it out. You'll still have to do all the familiar things like wood cutting, mining, farming, etc. to make sure you have the resources needed to build everyone's homes, as well as all the town buildings, and of course decorations for the town and the interiors of all the homes. You'll eventually start traveling around to different areas as you'll begin needing resources that don't grow in your town. There are social elements and romance, so fall in love with whoever you please. It's a really cute, easy to play game where the real challenge will just come in your own creativity and deciding how you want to build your town. There is some light danger in the areas you explore outside of your town, and I'd assume that would ramp up a little the further into the game you get, but I don't know to what extent, and I'd be surprised if this game ever really got truly difficult. It really does vibe as though it was made to just relax and build a town. I don't really have a ton else to say about it, but I'd say if what you're seeing is doing anything for you, you will more than likely enjoy spending some time in this one. Next, we have Fields of Mistria, and what Stardew Valley is to Harvest Moon, Fields of Mistria seems to have set out to be to Stardew Valley, and it's doing it better than any other game has in my opinion. It almost feels like it could just be a heavily modded version of Stardew Valley, and that's in no way meant to be a criticism. I have no problem with someone closely following the blueprint of a successful game that inspired them, as long as there was some obvious effort to innovate and try to give your game its own fingerprint, and I think they absolutely did that here. It's clear these devs were big fans of Stardew Valley, but had some ideas on things that they think could have been better, and you'll see that through the many quality of life implementations, the exceptionally wide variety of character customization items there are to unlock as you play, and the overall flow of gameplay. It's a gorgeous little game, with what has started out as a very interesting and well-paced story in the sense that it feeds you enough to be interested and curious about, without overdoing it or dumping too much on you. I can say in just my 2 hours, there are at least 3 things that I'm dying to learn more about, which is undoubtedly going to result in me playing more. All of the townspeople are very interesting and diverse. They all have their distinct styles and personalities, and the town itself feels very active and alive, independent of you. One really cool thing is the Friday night tavern hang, where everyone in town gets together in the tavern and plays Dungeons and Dragons, or cards, or gossips and drinks. And it really just feels like the type of small town hang you'd expect here. The implementation of the skill tree is very nice. You have quite a bit more customization over the development of your character and much sooner. I'd say if you've been playing Stardew Valley for a while and have been looking for a familiar experience but with an entirely new world to get immersed in, there's really no better option than this game. And even if you haven't played Stardew Valley, this is a brilliant, very well-made game with a very active and growing community, as well as active and engaged devs. It certainly seems to have a long future ahead of it, and in addition to already being a standout, it's very well on its way to becoming a staple in the genre. It's one I think everyone should check out for sure. Moving along, we have Coral Island, and you remember earlier when I said we'd get to the 3D Stardew Valley? We're here, but this one was an interesting ride. My initial impressions of the game were not very positive. I didn't care for the default controls. There were some issues with the general gameplay I was not a fan of, like how when using the scythe, you get charged energy per item destroyed by the scythe, when most games don't charge you energy at all for the scythe. I didn't like that I wasn't getting stones every time I broke a rock. Some of the animations I wasn't really into. At one point it kept telling me to open my journal, but what it really meant was my quest log. Open journal to claim reward. Now it... Oh, you didn't mean journal. You meant something else. Okay. And there was no visual notification or anything for it. There's a sound when you have new mail that I hate, and particularly hate that it persists through you reading the new mail. I was kind of bummed out because this was one of the games I was most looking forward to, as I'd heard great things about it. It wasn't all bad, to be clear, in the beginning. The character creator is really good. I like that it lets you choose from a few different styles for your initial home. I really like the NPCs and how different and interesting everyone is. I think the town is beautiful. I also think it's a really good move to have NPCs be in different outfits every day, so it's like they're actual people living in actual life and not just characters to fill up a town. The game is very pretty in general, and I really like the way the town is laid out. You'll see as you run around, there's so much to learn and do and expand into as as you play, tons of mystery scattered around. By the end of the first hour, I was far beyond any negative feelings I was having about the game, and thoroughly enjoying myself and very much interested in progressing and seeing what more this game has to offer. Coral Island probably has the cutest animals of any game I played for the video. I like all the different locations, the interiors are really nicely decorated and designed. I love the museum and that the more that you donate, the more it fills up, with all the different sections representing what you've donated. I especially liked that for the insects, there's a big terrarium in the center where they live, rather than being killed and pinned to a display. The game rolls itself out at a pretty nice pace, with the intro being fairly familiar if you played other games like this. Plant your beginner crops, gather some wood and stone, and go meet all the townspeople. This is very much a 3D Stardew Valley experience in a different universe, with some pretty innovative ideas the further into the game you get. If you haven't checked this one out yet, I definitely think it's worth trying out. Just be ready to give yourself a little time to adjust how different it's going to feel if you have any experience with other games like this. Coral Island ended up being one of my favorites on the list by the end of the 2 hours, and I will definitely keep it in my rotation moving forward, and could even see it being one I play pretty long term. Up next we have Kynseed, and this game impressed me in just about every way I think a game can impress me. I'd say this is definitely the sleeper game of the video. I was aware of Kynseed, and have seen the news of the huge update it recently received, but I didn't know much about it and didn't really have any expectations one way or another coming in. I'll start by saying this is probably some of the prettiest pixel art I've ever seen in my life. This game is absolutely stunning. I'll also say that Kynseed, more than any other game on this list perhaps, gives me the impression that I've just barely scratched the surface of everything this game has to offer. I don't even know if I fully know how to explain why I feel that way, but I just get the impression that I'm still very much in the prologue of this game after 2 hours. I have a feeling there is a lot going on here. It takes place in sort of a fairy tale universe, and the world feels very whimsical and magical. I think they nailed it here with the vibes and the aesthetic and everything. The music is excellent, very fitting, and there's plenty of it. You will notice very quickly just how much thought went into every little detail here. There's no doubt this game was a labor of love. Someone was trying to make the absolute best game they could here, and it shows. There are a lot of really interesting spins on familiar mechanics. One example I'll give is that there's another layer to gifting items to NPCs, as you're able to inflict status effects of sorts onto them with the things that you give them. So one way of utilizing this would be to give an item to someone to lower their barter stat, so that you can get better prices. I imagine there are countless ways to utilize this as the game opens up. You'll also notice there are quite a few more details in these NPCs, with all of them having stats that are generally reserved for the player character. I feel like this gives them a whole new layer of individuality and makes them feel like other people that live in this world just like you, and also makes you feel like more a part of the world, I think. The world seems to be huge and just very deep. I dabbled in the mines a little bit, and I'm very interested to get further in there. All in all, I think this is shaping up to be a phenomenal game. I will absolutely sink some more time into this one, and if you're someone who does have a lot of time in this game, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Just try to avoid any spoilers for me. And here we have Grimshire. It's a brand new game, and man, it's so interesting. If you're coming in fairly blind like I was, you might think this is just another cozy farming sim with a cute animal theme. And while it is those things, it is not those things alone. This game is heavy. It has what is shaping up to be a very deep story, and it's not looking like it's designed to make you feel warm and fuzzy. They really wasted no time putting the grim in Grimshire if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Actually, put that back down. Why would you do that? I just put it down, obviously for a reason. Let's get this out of the way now. This game is in early access, and you can tell it's in early access. But that is in no way to say it's not still a great game, or that it's not oozing with potential. You can just sort of feel that the controls haven't been fully fleshed out, and there's still some things to be done. That being said, in my 2 hours, I experienced no bugs or anything like that. It was a fairly smooth experience. The NPCs and the dialogue and the story are all fantastic, and I really like the trend I'm noticing in these games where when the town or village is trying to accomplish something together, that's actually reflected in the day-to-day goings-on. For example, there's a task where we're all participating in gathering materials to build something, and there's a drop box for the materials, and everyone is contributing to it. A lot of these games are guilty of the, hey, let's all do this thing together, now you farmer go do the thing, and that's fine and all, but this new thing of everyone participating really makes it easier to feel like you're part of something bigger, instead of the only one doing anything. It's got a really cool aesthetic, and again, while it's very cute and beautiful, there's almost like a filter over everything that really emphasizes the heaviness of what's going on around you. It's very well done. I also think they've done an excellent job with making the NPCs feel like fellow members in this village and not characters that are here to fill up the town. I think one good example of what I'm talking about is that there's a point where the town gets some pretty jarring, scary news. After everyone leaves and goes wherever they're going, rather than just being back in whatever their normal routines would be, I went inside a building to find a group of residents standing around a table talking about what just happened. It's like that might not seem like a big deal, but it really makes the weight of what's going on feel more tangible and gives a lot more life to these characters. It was a very cool decision in my opinion. As for the rest of the game, there's a good bit going on. There is a museum of sorts, and I love the way they've done it. The manor has different wings dedicated to different areas of things you'll be donating. So like upstairs, there's this old dead looking garden. But as you donate crops and trees and stuff, they come to life in their respective spots. So it's really satisfying to donate a new item and go check on it and see the progress. And very motivating in the sense that I want to restore the whole garden. There are aquariums where the fish are placed, and this is one of those areas I'm assuming is on the list of things to do, as right now it really just looks like a mural painted on the wall in honor of the fish, and I assume at some point it's going to be an animated aquarium. I didn't get too deep in the mines, but it appears they've added some layers of intensity to that as well, with cave-ins being something you have to worry about. One of the many interesting systems in this game is the community food storage that you and the citizens have to help keep full so everyone can eat. You can also take food out of it, which I thought was cool. Again, it really seems like a lot of emphasis was put into making you feel like just another resident in the town, and I really like that. For the first little bit, I had it in my head that I really liked the game, and that I'd probably keep an eye on the development and come back to it after some time, especially with everything else on this list that I want to play. But by the end of my 2 hours, I was so wrapped up in the story that I think I'm going to have to keep playing it because I want to not only know more about what's going on, but see where the limits of how grim this game is willing to get really are. It's fantastic. So if you're someone who loves the idea of these types of games but feels like they're generally too cheery and rainbow and butterflies for your taste, this game was made specifically for you. And that's going to do it for this video. I hope you found a game or two that you want to check out. Definitely let me know in the comments if I put anything on your radar, or if you've been playing any of these games for a while and want to add anything to what I've said. Also, let me know how you liked this format versus me ranking them. I'd be very interested in hearing which you prefer and why. I enjoyed making this video more than any of the other ones probably. These are some of my favorite types of games, and I finally had an excuse to make time for some of them that have been on my list forever. Thank you guys for showing up for these videos so I can keep making them. Hit the like button and subscribe if you feel so compelled. Maybe even turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitch so you can come hang out when we play games for future videos. And if the video I've put on the screen looks interesting to you, click that too. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.